Okay, so welcome officially everyone to the afternoon session of this Art of Letting Go course. Deirdre, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Lucy, Elaine, nice to see you again. So I think let's dive straight into the lesson, shall we? But today, so this is lesson 29. God is in everything I see. So we'll just read a few paragraphs and then we go into the practice. So there's 3 paragraphs and then we go into practice of it, which I'll guide you through in a little meditation. So why don't we ask Deirdre to start? Dive in the deep end. So just read the central idea in the first paragraph, and then I'm going to ask you if you have any thoughts, any questions, anything like that. Can you read the screen okay?
Yeah, I can read it fine. God is in everything I see. The idea for today explains why you can see all purpose in everything. It explains why nothing is separate by itself or in itself. And it explains why nothing you see means anything. In fact, it explains every idea we have used thus far and all the subsequent ones as well. Today's idea is for vision.
Yeah, and pause there. Okay, so any thoughts on that?
Well, I guess I get the sense of life force in everything. I mean, it's interesting. Before we started recording, there's a bit of chat about the war in the Ukraine. So that's what immediately comes to mind, is this sense of presence being in that, source being in that.
Yeah.
That's challenging.
Everything I see. God is in that war. Wow. Okay. That's how do I see God in the war?
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, this is really hard. So they go, it's just war, it's chaos, it's violence. People are getting hurt. People are getting killed. How can you see God, or how can you see God in something that's bad? How can you see God in a rubbish tip? Just a symbol of human waste and negligence and a sea of rubbish or whatever it is that pushes your buttons. How do you see God in it? Well, that's the whole point. Because there's a shift in your perception that has to take place.
And I had an experience I was dancing on Saturday, 5 Rhythms Outdoors, and had this experience of one side looking at the sun, and we were in a wooded area. I mean, Lucy knows the space, in a wooded area with a fire, kind of really gorgeous on one side, and the other side, these also gorgeous, but this sense of deep black clouds. And the contrast between light and dark. What came to me was it's all water. And I was kind of like with this sense of love and then this sense of war and the darkness and something about it all, water being through it all, kind of turned it on its head. So yeah, it's all energy. So I find it easier to take in if I transfer it to a place of it's all got an energetic quality to it, like it's got an energetic quality, and we don't know the purpose of what seems bad, how it, our mind labels it as bad, but we don't know where it's taking us. We don't know how many hearts are going to open. We don't,
So it's
many of the things in my life that have been difficult have actually been very deep, rich blessings.
Yeah, Jesus at some point says, well, you judge that some of your greatest retreats you've judged as successes, and some of your deepest failures have been vice versa. Some of your deepest so-called failures have been your greatest advances. So that's how it goes. It's about seeing beyond the obvious. That's what these mind training lessons are about. Why you can see all purpose in everything. So if you change the phraseology, instead of saying God is in everything I see, say love is in everything I see. And that little change of word can often really just shift someone's understanding. Love is in everything I see. Okay. Love is in everything I see. If you just contemplate that, and then in tomorrow's lesson, I'll jump ahead of it. He's saying love is in everything I see because love is in my mind. More interesting. So in other words, the source of my perception is not outside. It's not external. It's in my mind. So I'm now seeing from my mind rather than seeing with the body's eyes, and seeing from that flatland perspective. So this is our course manual, and there's some various information and helpful ideas here. So one of them is this diagram called the integral model. Don't know if you're familiar with the work of Ken Wilber.
I've heard of
a guy called Ken Wilber. So amazing guy, philosopher, probably the most widely read person on the planet in this domain of religion, philosophy. And so he spent, in the early 90s, he spent 3 years just working this out, saying, okay, so I've got all this information, these various ideas from different spiritual traditions. How do I put it all together into a single model that explains all of it? And he came up with this integral model, which is really simple, but powerful in its explanatory process. So he's saying, there's these 4 quadrants in life. I'm just gonna get out of there. Katie's not joining us. So you've got individual and collective, and interior and exterior quadrants. Okay? So you've got the 4, and where they intersect, you've got these different quadrants of experience. Really, it's describing our human world. It's not heaven. It's not non-dual, but it's describing this world quite accurately. So in the internal individual interior, you've got intentions. So this is your individual values, priorities, motivations, which then guide your behavior. So that's individual exteriors. You observe behaviors, performance outcomes, and so on that relate to your own individual life. And then you have collective versions of those, which are create the culture of any group, any society, and systems, are the structures and the processes that are really collectivized forms of behavior, patterns of behavior. And it kind of all works together. And so what the course is always pointing us to is this quadrant. He's saying, look, the only place you can really change, seek not to change the world, but seek to change your mind about the world, is this place. Change in the individual interior. So God is in everything I see, because God is in my mind is a direct pointer to this part of our mind. So look, if you're looking for God here in this, what he calls flatland, if you just think of the world as, okay, that's reality, without these interior dimensions, then it's impossible to see God in everything, because how do I see God in a war? How do I see God in a rubbish tip? How do I see God in all the pain and the suffering and the sickness and the death that populate this world? Impossible, unless I go into the interior domain of my mind. And I reinterpret what I'm seeing based on my beliefs, because my beliefs determine my perceptions. That's what Jesus is trying to teach us. So all of these lessons are pointers to go within to this domain and start to look at our own beliefs. and say, well, what do I really believe then? And how is what I'm perceiving, how is that symptomatic of my belief? And if I don't like it, if I don't like what I'm seeing, then maybe I can change my perception of it. To seek not to change the world, but seek to change your mind about the world. So you can't change the war in Ukraine, to give an example, but what you can do is change your perception of it. Does it upset you? Are you worried? Are you fearful? Are you upset? There's a whole range of reactions that can occur because of a seemingly external event. And he's saying, okay, well, let's look at that and change your mind about it. Because ultimately, this domain of the exterior is not true and it's not real. This is what he's trying to teach us. It's not ultimately true. It's a projection of our minds. It's a projection of belief which lies in our minds. So now we project on one level, create this so-called experience of an exterior world, and then we perceive it on another. And that projection perception mechanism now creates the illusion of a reality which locks us into a belief system that created it in the first place. And we've got to unwind from that. And that's what these mind training exercises are about. Saying the only way you're ever going to find freedom is if you go in here and you change your mind, you change your beliefs. If you keep believing the same thing, guess what? You'll keep creating the same thing, perceiving this real, and you're stuck in this reality that is really not very nice. It's not making you happy. So that's what he's trying to do with these lessons. And every single lesson points you in another way into this internal domain and saying, okay, so what are my beliefs then? What do I believe about this? So the war in the Ukraine, it's not really what's happening externally. It's like, well, what do I believe about it? Use it for mind training. What do I believe about it? Am I upset about it? Am I angry about it? Am I fearful about it? What do I believe about this? And then you go within and you go, okay, well, maybe there's some fear there. Okay, let's work with that. What's the fear? I'm fearing for my own safety. I'm fearing for other people's safety. I'm making pain and suffering real in my mind because, these people are suffering terribly. Isn't that awful? And, these are the subtle ways that the ego works on our mind. It uses the external world all the time to trigger these beliefs that are false. And then says, no, look, you can see these, so this must be true. War must be true because, look, it's happening. And the only way out of this bind of projection perception is this kind of mind training. It's to say, no, actually, maybe that's not the case. Maybe actually love is in everything I see. So love is in that war. Why? Because underlying all of this, underlying the conflict and what's happening on the surface, there's a deeper call for people to awaken to something, to a presence that's beyond all of that. So the opportunity in any war is to go into peace. So love is in everything I see, if I choose to see it. Making sense, sort of.
So it makes sense, and at the same, I guess then, because I'm imagining myself into living in the Ukraine and experiencing like my house being shelled and bombed and not, kind of standing, there were things this morning about standing in queues to withdraw money from the banks. And that's when I can imagine it becomes very challenging then to see love is in everything I see.
So yes, it is more challenging because you're facing the direct effect seemingly of the ego, and it seems to be very real. But in every situation, you still have a choice.
Yeah.
You can choose to see it differently. So those people in the Ukraine still have a choice as to how they want to see that situation. So do they go into total fear or anger, or can they find a deeper kind of spiritual dimension and go, okay, maybe this is pointing us, this is awakening us from our normal kind of daily humdrum ego lives into, we have to go deeper. We have to find a deep faith in something beyond all of this. And so any extreme situation like war can point you to God, absolutely. And there's been many instances of people who found God in the most extreme situations: war, famine, disease. Viktor Frankl comes to mind, concentration camp, Nazi Germany, pretty much, one of the most awful situations you could be in. And yet that forces him to go within and find a deeper meaning, which he then, from that place of meaning, writes his book and founds this whole thought system called logotherapy, another school of psychotherapy, which has made a great contribution to people's understanding of the human mind and motivation, coming from the most horrendous experience. So there's this transcendent dimension that's available in any situation, but it's especially available in crisis, because crisis is an opportunity to go deeper into our minds and say, well, if everything is terrible on the external, then what it forces one to do, you're either going to collapse and go, this is just so dreadful and my world's coming to an end and oh boo-hoo, it's so terrible, I'm just going to collapse. Or you've got to go within and you've got to say, okay, well, I've got to go within and find something deeper than just the exterior world. I have to go into my own mind. I have to find courage. I have to find faith. I have to find power there. Whatever I need, I have to look within, because I'm not going to find it outside. And that is a great spiritual opportunity, an opportunity to awaken. So, reinterpreted, the war in Ukraine is an opportunity for the people in the Ukraine directly affected and the rest of the world to awaken from our stupor of this external attachment to this external world, and saying that this is reality. The scientific materialist paradigm is a religion. It's saying only this is real. If you can't see it, feel it, touch it, taste it, and measure it, it is not real. That's the kind of default worldview, which effectively is a religion, because it's a way of seeing and it's a belief system, and it's a way of seeing the world. And that's the kind of the modern religion. That's what most people believe, right? The external world is real. Internal world, not so sure about that. Okay, I have thoughts, but are they even real? So I focus my attention on the external world. And if I keep doing that, then I basically deny this interior dimension of my mind. And I never really develop that or explore that. And I'm really a victim of circumstances. So something like a war comes along, or COVID, whatever it is, and I feel very fearful, because my life is being threatened, my existence is being threatened, because I've defined myself as by the exterior, which is a body. Well, that's a pretty fearful identity to have, because the body, as we know, is very fragile. The body can get sick, the body will die inevitably. So you want to identify with the body, you're denying your true mind. You're actually denying the source of your very being in that misidentification. And this is what the Course is saying this is a non-dual teaching. You must choose. You cannot be a body and a mind, right? They contradict each other. Mind contradicts the bodies. So as many teachers say, well, we're all of it. We body, we mind, we spirit. It's all, well, how can I be a body and an eternal mind, right? There's a clear contradiction here. A body is mortal, a body is fallible, a body can get sick, body can die, body can suffer. So on this level, none of that is eternal. All of that is shifting, changing, impermanent, and seems to deny the reality of an eternal mind that is beyond that. So Jesus is saying, look, there's a split in your mind, and this is what caused the world. The split, the projection of the split caused this split in your mind. We now literally went out of our minds and we went in to this domain of the external world when we created it. So here's a little diagram, which I'll just dive you into quickly, which explains how this all came about, right? And we had a little tiny mad idea of separation once upon a time, and that tiny mad idea of separation led to this entire world, right? Based on thought to start with. So it just started with an idea that I want to be something separate from God or love or oneness. And then as we develop that thought, it leads us down this path into what I call hell, which is a helpless, innovative little life, where we actually believe that we have an individual identity, right? And then we name it. So it's separate identity named. And then we have guilt for the sin of destroying God or love or oneness, which is insane because you can't destroy this. God is. It just is. It's pure formless awareness is another name for that. You cannot destroy it. But the ego mind believes, in order to have its separate identity, that it has destroyed it. So that's the basis now for this tremendous metaphysical guilt and sin at this apparent crime of destroying oneness. And then the insane idea that now this God that you've miscreated in your mind is going to punish you for your terrible sin, even though you've destroyed it. Okay, well, that doesn't make any sense at all if you really look at it logically. But that is the deep-seated fear of the ego, that you've done this terrible thing and you're going to be punished. So now you have this false expectation of punishment appearing real, and that shows up in our world as many things, as things like wars and pandemics and so on, because we think we deserve to be punished. And so we keep creating these punishments that seemingly come at us from this external world, which gets miscreated from this tiny mad idea. The projection of our desire to be individual, the guilt that we feel for that, the tremendous fear we felt, and then all of that creates the energy for this world. Energy is just projected thought. So it's projected into this domain of what we now call the physical universe, and we literally went out of our minds. And we still are out of our minds, as Jesus keeps telling us. You think you're a body, you're out of your mind. That's exactly where the phrase comes from. And so we've gone out of our minds. We've sought to deny God or love or oneness by creating a world where this cannot be experienced, seemingly. We've shut this out from our awareness. Well, no, now I'm a body, and now I'm playing by all kinds of other rules that the ego's made up. So this world is governed by the ego's laws, seemingly, overtly. But what he's saying to us here in these lessons is, no, actually, in truth, God or love is still in everything I see. So it doesn't matter what I've miscreated here. All of this stuff, the Big Bang then creates multiple different forms. We now have all these different forms, including human life. And now what we seek to do is let go of our guilt, get rid of our guilt by attacking someone else. Accusation, blame, and attack are just stock in trade, because we're actually projecting our guilt onto someone or something else, which is kind of what's happening in the Ukraine. It's a collective manifestation of this thought system of guilt and sin, and then attack is inevitable. So now we'll go attack someone else, and we'll temporarily feel better about ourselves because we're not the ones who are going to be guilty. Someone else is guilty, and someone else must suffer for our sin. So that's the energy of attack. That's what we're trying to do, and so that's what's actually behind all of this. So now you can reinterpret, Lucy. You're just dropping off there. We can reinterpret all of this from anything we see in this crazy world from this perspective and say, okay, but it's all just part of this red scrum of a thought system, and all of it is a call to awaken to this. Our job in life is to see it for what it really is, and then correct our minds and say, no, actually none of this is true. So the war is a manifestation of this whole thought system, but this thought system is not true. This thought system is false because it's based on one tiny, mad, false idea that yes, you can actually be separate from what you really are. So therefore, all of it's false. So therefore, why am I getting upset by it? Why am I getting up? Why am I getting angry, upset? Why is there any reaction to this if it's false? And this is the correction, the one correction of the Holy Spirit, which is simply the awareness of oneness that says, no, this is all false. So don't buy into any of it. Don't believe any of it. It's simply false. In fact, love is still there. Love is in your mind. And so you can let go of your mental and emotional attachment to all of this, collapse it all in your mind, and use the situation for what it's for, which is to return your mind to this, to God or love or oneness or pure formless awareness. and not allow this thought system of sin and guilt and fear and attack to play out in your mind. Deny its hold on you. It has no power unless you give it the power to use your mind. And so every situation then becomes a call to awaken. And the more difficult it is, the more ego that you see in it, the more opportunity you have to awaken, because you see the ego so clearly. There it is. Oh, it's not nice. It's ugly. It's painful. It's suffering. It's sickness. It's death. And then you go, well, do I want the thought system that's behind it? Do I want to continue believing in this or not? Or can I free myself from this right now just by making a choice to see it differently? And that's really what the lesson is pointing us to do. He's trying to change our perception of this external world, because he's saying that's the only way out. Now that you've gone down this track, you believe that you really are an individual, a body in an unfair, cruel world, living a helpless, enervated little life of limitation, lack, loneliness, suffering, and death. Now that you believe that, the only way out of this is to start changing your perception. You're not just going to go back there straight away. You've got to change your perceptions of all of this. And that's going to take some undoing and some mind training. And so that's what this course is designed to do. It's a course in miracles are really a correction. It's a course in correction. It's a course in correcting the false beliefs that have created this world, miscreated this world, and that perpetuate it. Because now that we've miscreated it, these beliefs seem to be externalized, projected out into this illusion, and they seem to be coming at us as some kind of external reality that's true, and not just a projection of our own beliefs. It's crystallized belief. These domains of behavior and systems, crystallized belief, and not just our belief, apparently. Now there's a collective belief playing out. But it still comes down to, what do you believe? That's what he's saying. In the end, this is what it comes down to, individual belief. What do you believe? What do you believe? What do you think? What do you feel about these seemingly external events? And you have 100% control and responsibility of that, because only you can choose that. No one else can force you to believe anything, irrespective of what's happening on the external, which is really Viktor Frankl's message. He's saying, look, even in the worst circumstances, you can choose. You have the one remaining power of freedom that you have. One remaining power you have, no matter what's happening, is the power to choose your response, quote unquote, which is exactly what Jesus is trying to teach us here. So today's idea is the whole basis for vision, because it's pointing you into this internal domain and saying, but this can take you back into your source, back to a deeper connection with who you really are, and changing your mind about this external world. And that change of mind he calls vision. And it explains every idea we've used thus far and all subsequent ones as well. So it's holographic. You understand this idea, you understand the whole thought system. And that's the nature of this course. Every idea is actually a little pointer into the entire thing, the entire thought system of the Holy Spirit, which is the counter to the ego and its insane thought system. Okay, so any questions so far? Anyone? Deirdre, does that kind of make sense? That's just a bit of a fire hose coming down at you, like. So we've covered a lot of stuff in the course, but
I grew up in I very much grew up in the belief system that you describe, quite an extreme version of it, and yeah, I had a very powerful experience at my mum's death of it felt like she really let go into love, and it got labeled as being me channeling the devil. So I really get it.
Yeah, because you've had that experience.
I really get it.
Yeah, and actually, it wasn't the devil at all. It was divine and it was peaceful. And you go, well, how can you say that's devil? It was, it was enormously peaceful, and it was an opening.
Well, there was a lot of fear that got released in the process. And And the fact that I was touching my mum, I got other family members identified me with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, this kind of, it was a very, very beautiful moment where my mum really, really let go of something huge, really huge, like existential, strong fear blasting out into the room.
When you felt that.
And then this real profound serenity and peace and beauty, deep, deep beauty.
So if you look at this timeline of consciousness, death is an opening into the divine. It's a massive opening if you're ready. So did this happen on her deathbed? She was ready to. So she just dropped away some of this ego, drama, trauma on the timeline and surrendered in that moment into this dimension. God, and then you felt it clearly, because it's like an opening, a portal, and you go, wow, I can't deny that. Just such deep peace and serenity. And if you call that the devil, then you must be mistaken, because you can't deny what you felt.
But the experience of that, the release of that, was like a tidal wave of a blast, like a force, a very strong, fearful force blasting out into the room. So at one level, and it's interesting, I just I was sitting in a very deep stillness. Like I'd gone and sat with, I met these great big trees, a real profound stillness. And I was in that space witnessing this almighty, like it was so strong. People were sitting like that, hands out, eyes closed, heads turned away. It was, I've never experienced anything like it. And it's interesting that my relationship to it saw it as a lot of fear being released. And then it felt like when she got to her heart, she had it let go. And then, and then the love was there.
Yeah, so that's a little microcosm of, in that moment, she dropped the ego, which was a real block to the awareness of love's presence. And then it came through so strongly, and it's you can feel it. This isn't something that has no power; it has enormous power. And like so, everyone there can feel and go like, and then they get scared of the power, and so they label it as the devil. Oh, this is the devil's work, because it's such a, they can feel that presence. But actually, it's the divine power coming through, and the ego interprets it as this is scary and fearful. So I'll label it as bad, which is kind of what we've done our entire lives. We deny the spirit all the time, this dimension, by rooting ourselves onto the timeline. So there are these two forces playing out in our lives. You've got the force of the ego, which is the red arrows. So that's psychological and emotional attachment to experiences in our lives that root us on the timeline, that give us a separate identity. And so all these traumas that we experience in life, if you allow them to, they just confirm, no, you really are Deirdre, and yes, you really did suffer, and oh shame, poor you, and so you create a story around it, and you continue on that story, which is a victim story that teaches your mind to go back here, teaches your mind that you are the victim of the world, and all these events are hurting you, punishing you, they're real, and you contract and limit yourself into this very small little ego self, that in which happiness and love and peace and joy cannot come, because you've excluded them. And so this process of awakening is about challenging all of that and saying, no, actually, what's happening here on the timeline isn't true. These events, these traumas, this is all projection of the ego mind, and none of it's ultimately true. So in each situation, especially if there's been some major trauma, parent trauma, it's an opportunity to let go of that, and release your mind, free your mind into pure formless awareness or God or love or eternity, an eternal self, that is really not affected by this at all, that is above the battleground, that really is not affected one bit by any of these traumas. And that process is the Holy Spirit's letting go of forgiveness, simply saying, don't buy into this, don't believe this, instead remain rooted in your true self. That is beyond this. And so each experience then is a mini death. You die to the ego and you're reborn in the spirit. And you can do this on an ongoing basis. Your life continuously presents you with situations, some of which are challenging, and trying to root you onto the timeline. And then you can simply say, no, I'm going the other way. I'm going to use this for correction, for forgiveness or letting go, which frees my mind from the timeline. I now no longer identify so much as the character. I recognize that there's this transcendent spirit, pure formless awareness, Christ self, whatever you want to call it, that's in my mind, that gets stronger and stronger as you let go more and more. And as you experience, the power of this is enormous. It's like so huge, our minds can't even conceive of it, really. And it came through because she let go of a major ego hold, ego block. It came through very powerfully, and you felt it, and everyone felt it, because it was a major. It's like that arrow there. That was a major arrow, wasn't it? It was like whoosh, like a major portal opening into that domain. And then anyone's going to feel it. We're not so spiritually kind of unaware that we can't feel it. But then how you interpret it. So the people who had a belief system, presumably traditional religion, then interpret that as fearful, because they don't understand it, and the ego says, oh no, that's very scary, because that presence is the undoing of the entire ego. It's the undoing of this entire world. And so the ego has to interpret it as fearful in order to maintain its identity. That's really what's going on here. All the time, we have this choice between the ego and the spirit in every situation, and it's just, well, which one are you going to choose? And that's all the Course in Miracles is very simple. That's all he's saying. You've got two thought systems, two ideas, two powers, two energies, and there seems to be a conflict and a contradiction between them. So you must choose between them. You cannot have both in your mind. You cannot have love and fear and be sane. Your mind is then split, and you vacillate between the two, and you're actually going nowhere. So you're bouncing up and down, oh no, that's real, oh no, that's not real, real, not real, real, not real. And you're actually not really going anywhere. You're not really changing your mind. And he's asking us to make a commitment here to this thought system and say, look, follow this way, because I will bring you peace. I will bring you the peace of God that passes all understanding if you follow my way. I'm just the way show. I've done it before you, and I can show you how to do this. I can show you how to let go of whatever it is, whatever your mental and emotional attachments are, and how those are being triggered on the timeline. I can help you to let go of all of them and free your mind into this domain of God or love or pure formless awareness, which is always there. So love is in everything I see. It's in the messy divorce. It's in the major rejection by someone. It's in the death of someone. It's in the major success. If I have a major success in life, it's in there. It's in everything. Love is in everything I see, because it's in my mind. It's always available to me if I allow it to be. Okay. So any comments or questions? Let's move on to number 2, shall we? So Elaine, will you read number 2 for us?
You'll probably find this idea very difficult to grasp at this point. You may find it silly, irreverent, senseless, funny, and even objectionable. Certainly, God is not in a table, for example, as you see it. Yet we emphasized yesterday that a table shares the purpose of the universe. And what shares the purpose of the universe shares the purpose of its creator.
Okay. So just, do you want to translate that one sentence?
To
Like you can do two
pure
sentences.
formless awareness or love. Pure
Mm.
formless awareness.
Mm.
Okay, so must I read the whole thing
Just
again?
from certainly.
Okay, certainly pure formless awareness is not in a table, for example, as you see it. Yet we emphasized yesterday that a table shares this purpose of the universe. And what shares the purpose of the universe shares the purpose of its creator.
Okay, so anything strike you there?
It's quite difficult for me to get my head around it, I must say. That a table or any object shares the same pure formless awareness that we speak of.
Because what's the foundation?
So what is in my mind, if I'm meditating, I'm able to experience that pure formless awareness. The table experiences the very same thing.
Well,
is that what is being said there?
Table is in your mind. The table has no independent existence apart from your mind. So the next lesson is love is in God is in everything I see, because God is in my mind. Yeah? So he builds on this first lesson. Why is that? Because this is the foundation. This is foundational awareness, right? Pure formless awareness. Before form was invented, before the thought of separation, right? Your mind was, and it still is. This is what he's pointing us to. And so underneath all of these sense perceptions and whatever the mind has invented here, but underlying that is this pure formless awareness still. Okay, so it's a base awareness, without which you would have no existence at all. So it's still there in your mind. And so what you're seeing, you see the table, you see the chair, you see the various objects in this external world we've invented. Like underneath those perceptions, because that's all they are, it's perceptions in your mind, still lies pure formless awareness. The foundation of your mind is still exactly as it always was before the thoughts of separation. And so you can see that even in a table, if you choose to. You can see it in anything that's happening here. The purpose of the universe. The table shares the purpose of the universe. Why? Because it's part of the same. Everything got created or miscreated from the projection of thought outwards. So whether it's a table or a chair or a body, it doesn't matter. It's all the same. It's all the projection of this one tiny mad idea of separation outwards. But what underlies that idea, what's still there, is this power we call God, or love, or oneness, or pure formless awareness. It's still there. The thoughts of separation, in fact, did nothing.
So before the separation occurred, I would not have seen this as a table.
No, there would be no
experience.
There is no table. There's no form. Pure formless awareness is before form. There's no need for form in pure formless awareness. The table exists seemingly because of an idea of separation that entered the mind. And the mind believed it and then went down this entire track to create an external world and miscreate all of the objects and seeming people and beings like animals and plants and whatever in it, based on a single tiny mad idea of separation. So you can use the table or anything in this world to remind you of that truth. That actually in your mind, beyond this seeming form of the table, is this truth of pure formless awareness. And so everything here can now be a pointer back to that if you choose to perceive it that way. And you don't just perceive it as, oh, well, it's a table and tables are useful for putting things on. And, you know, on one level, that's the purpose. So he points to purpose here. He says, so you seemingly have this purpose that you give to the table. The table's there to put things on. It's useful to, you know, have computers on or to eat on or whatever. It's got a functional use. But actually, it shares the purpose of the entire universe. So what's the purpose of the entire universe? Well, if this is true, this conception of Jesus is teaching us is true, then the purpose of this universe, seemingly physical universe, we'll take it on that level because there's a number of ways of interpreting universe. But the purpose of this physical universe that we seem to live in is to awaken us. So the purpose of the table is to help you to awaken from your dream and to go back to pure formless awareness. That's the purpose of the universe. So the table shares the same purpose as everything. The real purpose of everything in this projected world is to awaken you, to remind you of who you really are and help you to transcend it. Which is why he says the table shares the purpose of the universe, and that shares the purpose of its creator. Right, so again, you have to be a little bit careful because he's saying creator. Well, the creator of this universe is the ego. Beyond that, like ultimate creator or source is this power, God, love, oneness, pure formless awareness. So when he talks about universe here, he's actually referring to a universe that's much bigger than just the physical universe. He uses the term to refer to something beyond that. Actually, the universe is of love. The universe is love. The universe is this. Which is why he says, what shares the purpose of the universe shares the purpose of its creator. So really, love is everywhere. Love is still all-encompassing. Love underlies all of this. And that's the true universe. That's the spiritual universe, which he's pointing us to. Just through the simple exercise of looking at the table differently. Which is quite profound. I mean, he's using just very ordinary things in this world and our perceptions of them to awaken us to what's so beyond all of this, transcendent. Which is why this is an amazing course. Because he's taking the very normal, practical, everyday things and he's saying just see them differently. And use them for what they're really for, which is to awaken into this transcendent dimension. God, love, oneness, pure formless awareness. Does that make any sense, Elaine?
I am really battling to get it.
To grasp it.
To grasp it, but I'm within the whole context of the course, it sort of starts to seep in. The more you see it coming from different angles.
It's a different way of seeing the world. That's what he's trying to get you to do.
Seeing the world, like
nothing else.
Nothing else.
So then he says, number 3. Lucy, do you want to read number 3 for us?
Try then today to begin to learn how to look on all things with love, appreciation, and open-mindedness. You do not see them now. Would you know what it is then? Would you know what is in them? Nothing is as it appears to you. Its holy purpose stands beyond your little range. When vision has shown you the holiness that lights up the world, you will understand today's idea perfectly, and you will not understand how you could ever have found it difficult. So it's like looking at those holograms. I mean, that's a very crude version of it. You know, you look at the hologram, you can't see it, and then you just let your eyes refocus in a different way, and then all of a sudden the image jumps out. So it's not the best analogy, but that sense of you know, what I like about this particular lesson is that it's like you don't see it now, but then you will, and when you do, you won't unsee it. But it's like you can't quite see it yet, and that's okay. And he's really giving permission to that, and just saying, just keep choosing the Holy Spirit's vision, the Holy Spirit's mind. Just keep choosing instead of the ego. And I really love this, that when vision has shown you, so it's like vision shows you. So in a sense, your own capacity to see shows you the holiness that then lights up the world. So it's like within yourself. It's not outside of yourself that vision is available to you. And there's the thunder lightning in the background. Just
Just put an exclamation mark after.
I know, just to illustrate the it's like the hand reaches out of the sky.
It doesn't matter what's happening. You know, this vision is always there. The holiness is always there. So the only thing that determines whether you see it or not is your own choice. Remember what I said to you, Lucy? Choice is power. Yesterday, choice is power. You must choose. What he's asking us to do. You choose one way or another. Choice means you've got to cut away some options. You must choose. You can't be open to the ego and the spirit. One way of seeing denies the other. So you must choose. And that's power when you choose. If you choose the ego completely, and we've seen people who've done that, seemingly, you know, there's a power available there. That's a very dark power, and it's ultimately destructive. But, you know, they do stuff. Look at what Hitler did. He chose the dark. And, okay, so, like, changes the whole world in a very destructive way. Same way, you know, choose the Holy Spirit's power only, and you know, see what happens with that. You
can't keep your options open with this one.
No. This is the central message of A Course in Miracles. He's saying you must choose, right? You cannot have both of these in your mind and be sane.
So trying to fix that, the kind of victim mentality, it's unfixable, isn't it? You just have to choose. You cannot kind of quell it in a way, or quieten it, or soften it, or lull it to sleep in a way. You really have to be very sharp and see it for what it is. And
say, I'm done with this. This entire thought system must go. That's what Jesus is saying. You will never make sense of this. You will never find happiness or peace or love. You'll never find what you really yearn for, as long as you believe in any idea of separation. That's the problem. One problem and one solution. You have an idea of separation, which has become the default idea of your world, right? This is the idea on which you've based your entire reality. And look at the reality. Honestly, if you look at this mad, crazy scrum of red stuff going on, does any of that make any sense? And if you're honest, it doesn't really. You go like, what on earth? Why do we do this? Incarnate into a world, have these lies, all this limitation, lack, loneliness, suffering, death. Like, why any of this? Why does any of it exist?
It literally is the stuff that, apart from the entertainment bit, which comes as a kind of interlude, it literally is what is being pumped out by the overculture, isn't it? It's like, yeah, really kind of almost glorifying guilt in some way and fear, and making it seem like you're a more conscious person, or you're more caring, I guess, if you have fear.
Yeah. I mean, look at this COVID pandemic. What are the two emotions that drive it? Fear for self, for others. Oh, no, but I'm really concerned about others. So they must do the vaccines and whatever as well. And then guilt, major one, because if you're not doing what you should be doing, then you're not a good boy or girl, and you're potentially harming everyone else. Oh, now you need to feel very guilty about that. So what goes out the window is individual choice. The very choice that you need to make, that Jesus is asking us to make, and say, you must choose to free your mind. And you have that sovereign right, and do not give that away to anyone else. Do not allow anyone to make the choice for you. If you look at the history of the world, all of the dictatorships and tyrannies happen because the individual right of individuals to choose is taken away or subsumed or oppressed, and said, no, you don't have the right to choose. You must go with the group. You must go with what we tell you. It's kind of seemingly a paradox. You say, well, how could individual choice and oneness be the same? Well, it's because the individual choice allows you to make another choice, a choice for spirit, a choice for something that transcends the world of the ego, which is the dominant worldview and thought system of this world, which then gets seemingly imposed on you by these seemingly external authorities and powers in the world that say, no, you must believe this. So individual choice becomes the way out of the groupthink of the ego. It wants to keep you, the only intention of the ego is to keep you trapped in this world. That's all it wants. So that you believe in it, you believe you're the victim, you believe in sickness, suffering, limitation, loss, and death, and it's all pretty miserable, really. If you're honest, it's a pretty depressing, miserable, awful reality, which is why we call it hell, right? It's a helpless, enervated little life. If you think you are that, and you create a world based on that self-concept, then this is the world you'd create. And we see it, in the seemingly external world. But you still have a choice. You don't have to believe any of it. You can choose to believe in this no matter what seems to be happening here. So love is in everything I see. It's in the war in the Ukraine. It's in the COVID pandemic. It's in the vaccines. It's in the war and the sickness and the suffering and the murder and the death and all of it, because all of that is simply a covering over. The ego's covered over love to try and convince you that all of this is true. But love is still there, calling you every moment of every day, of every hour, of every minute. It's calling you, saying, remember, remember, remember before all of this. Remember this state of mind. Remember how you were. Remember the love that you had. Remember the peace. Remember the joy. It's still there. Remember. Do not buy into this really shabby belief system, this ridiculous, shabby, insane belief system that seemingly governs your world. Do not buy any of it. Because if you buy a little part of it, you have to buy the whole lot of it. You're either a victim or you're not. Make your choice. You're either completely a victim of the world or you're not at all. Those are the choices. There's no in between. There's no like half-hearted, oh, well, I'm kind of a victim. I'm sort of a victim. I'm a little bit victimized, but I have a little bit of power. No, it's one or the other here. You must choose. Which thought system do you believe in? And that's what he's asking us to do with this lesson. When vision has shown you the holiness that lights up the world. So holiness is the world perceived from the eyes of love. So instead of seeing all of this and going, and believing all these thoughts, holiness simply looks on all of this, dismisses this entire thought system, and sees only love, and feels only love. You might go, part of your mind's going, that's impossible. How do you look upon all of this with only love? But it is possible. It has been done. People like Jesus and Buddha and other masters who are alive have done it. You can actually let go of all of your false beliefs and simply perceive love everywhere. So in everything, there's a call for love. You look upon the war in the Ukraine, you say, well, this is an opportunity for everyone to awaken to love. So, okay, why am I upset about it? This is what obviously what they need. So then that's what they experience, and they've got this opportunity. And if I can be of any service or any help to them in their awakening, then great. But maybe I can't. Maybe that's just the experience they've got to go through, and that's okay. So why do I feel fear then? Or why do I feel this shouldn't be happening? Maybe it absolutely should be happening, because that's how they're going to awaken to who they really are. So who am I to deprive them of their opportunity to awaken to who they really are? Because the war shouldn't be happening, you see. So it's a different thought system. It's a different logic, which then is much more peaceful. You say, well, I don't need to get upset because it's all fine. It's all perfect in its imperfection. Because they need the dramas and the traumas. We need the dramas and the traumas of this world to wake up. If everything was smooth and hunky-dory here, then there'd be no call to awaken, would there? There'd be no call to return our minds to love. So it's all perfect in its imperfection. The world is the perfect teacher to teach you that actually all you really want is love. Mm. And the worse it gets, the more opportunity you have to learn that lesson. The more obvious the lesson should become to you. It's like, okay, it's absolutely dreadful, absolutely hellish. Okay, well, yeah, this is what separation does. See it for what it is, and just let it go. You don't have to believe it in anymore. And the freedom in that is so amazing. It's so just transcendently amazing. I mean, you've experienced it, Deirdre, in that little opening. I mean, like, why wouldn't you want that? It's just amazing, awesome, incredible power available to you, and you can have it right now because it's available always. It's never gone away, in truth. We've just covered it over. So I had a sort of spiritual mystic experience last year. I went on a 10-day silent retreat, Vipassana meditation, and on day 9, I had this moment, and it was very momentary, maybe only a few seconds, a minute, I don't know the time, because there was no sense of time, where I just went into this, and there was no thought, but there was just an awareness, just pure formless awareness. That's why I came up with the name. How do I describe this? Pure formless, that's what it was. There was no substance, there was no subject to it, there was no substance to it. I couldn't say, well, that was it. But it was an awareness that arose for that brief time, a little opening into this dimension. And then immediately afterwards, the sort of Holy Spirit part of my mind interpreted that experience and said, well, yeah, this is exactly what you've done. So all of the thoughts and the emotions, the fear and the guilt and the sin and the attack thoughts, all of that is simply a projection of the ego mind. So what the ego has done is it's created this world precisely to convince you that those thoughts and emotions are real. And so I really understood experientially in that moment why they call this a veil of illusion. Because it's a veil that's been pulled over your eyes to justify those thoughts and emotions. That's the only purpose of the world. So that fear and guilt and sin and attack can seemingly be justified, and therefore you can believe in these ideas and you can believe in a false self-concept, which is what the ego is. And that's the only purpose for the world. And it's just a veil that's been pulled over your eyes to cover the truth. And in that moment, I really, like, this entire teaching just dropped for me. I was like, I get it. I just absolutely get what Jesus is saying, what all the masters have said. It's a veil of illusion pulled over your true eyes to convince you that this thought system of the ego is justified, and that actually that's what you are, and that you are not this pure formless awareness. And I cried because it was like, well, how could we have done that? That's so terribly sad. That's just so terribly sad. Why would I have done such a stupid thing? And so one does go through these emotions in the unwinding, because you realize, yeah, that was just a crazy idea. To cover over, I mean, that in that pure formless awareness, everything is perfect, everything is pure, everything is holy, everything is pristine, there's innocence, there's love, everything you really want is there. And yet, no, we choose something else. We choose to cover all that over, create a world of illusion, only to cover that over, just to create a false identity. This is the teaching of Course in Miracles and other non-dual parts. They're saying the same thing. It's just a cover, and it has no purpose other than that. The illusion was only made up to perpetuate a false identity, which you really don't want. So let it go. In any situation, you have that opportunity to let it go and free your mind, which is what he's training us to do through these simple lessons. So 3 paragraphs, simple lesson, simple idea, but look at where it takes you. Isn't it interesting how much conversation and thought and so on you can have around these simple ideas? Which is why we study it together, so that we explore this together. And as you listen to this, something starts to permeate him and starts to just undo another little part of that ego thought system as you do these lessons. Okay, so any questions on this?
I guess I just want to comment on something I noticed in myself. So I really get this very clearly with the natural world. And I sense it very strongly in the natural world. And I guess coming back to the table, it just feels like I spend a lot of my time outdoors. And there's a real sense of balance and stillness and presence throughout everything. And yet at the same time, I notice there's something in me that separates out between outside and inside. So I feel it very strongly outside in the natural world. It's more difficult to sense it indoors. I find it harder to access it there. Although I'm beginning to sense it a lot more, but I notice there's still a subtle separation in my own mind.
Yeah.
That I make distinctions where it is and where it isn't. And it feels like some places on the earth have really embody it in a very I feel it very strongly in some locations, but for some reason I don't feel it as strongly elsewhere. And I'm curious what that dimension is.
Well, it's all part of this construct of separation. So in the separation, everything seems to be separated, fragmented, and so now there's some things that seem to have more presence than others. Some places, some people, events seem to have more presence than others. That's part of the illusion. Because in truth, this is all that's true. It's always there. It's always available. It has no degrees. It has no shifts. There's no change. So if you're not perceiving it, because you're indoors, then that just means that the way you interpret the indoor environment is a way that's not opening you to that. So that's why, interesting, he uses things like tables. He uses man-made objects, not natural objects. He doesn't say, go look at the plant or the tree, because that's a little bit easier maybe. Oh, well, okay, well, maybe I can see it in a plant or a tree. So just use whatever's around you. Table, use a chair, these are all man-made objects that the ego mind is made up for a specific purpose, right? The table is made because we found it useful to put things on, so we invent tables. So it's the seeming purpose is an egoic purpose. It's within the domain of time and space. It has a functional use, and he's asking us to use those objects and reinterpret them for the only purpose they really have, which is our awakening. And go beyond our misperceptions, right, of the world that holds you, that stop you. Who stops you from having that awareness always? It's your own belief that stops you. Because in your mind, the natural world is seemingly more connected, has more presence than the table or any man-made thing. But actually, it's all, the presence is in your mind. As tomorrow's lesson says, God isn't everything I see because God is in my mind. So if it's always in my mind, well, it's everywhere. It's in everything. How can it not be if it's in my mind? And so my only difficulty with that is I don't want to believe it fully. Because if I really believe it, God isn't everything I see because God is in my mind, maybe I'll start to come to the awareness that God is my mind. My whole mind, right? This pure formless awareness is my entire mind. And that's actually all there really is. And guess what? If that's all there really is, then this has to drop away. It doesn't exist anymore. And so then the ego gets nervous about that and says, well, we need to defend against that. So let's not see that in a table or a chair, or let's not see that in the man-made world. We'll only allow you to see it in the natural world, a little bit, a little glimpse of it. But not in the man-made world, because most of the time you're indoors. A lot of the time you're indoors. So now we'll keep you in your little ego self by keeping your perception very limited, and keeps this idea of who you are going. So that's what's going on.
I guess I've been coming at this from a slightly different. I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, just kind of observing something. So I've been doing an ecotherapy course, and increasingly the table is basically made out of everything that is in existence comes from the natural. It's impossible to separate anything out from anything else. So like the table is made of wood, even our phones are made of minerals that are gathered from the earth. It's absolutely impossible for anything to be independent or separate from anything else on the physical plane, which, I mean, is coming at it from a slightly different angle.
Well, it's all part of one thought system. So if you think of, from the ego's point of view, the separation was one idea, right? One idea, one tiny mad idea of separation kicks off this entire illusion. So that one idea we call the ego or the universal mind or Satan, whatever, that idea is behind the entire physical world that we perceive. So of course it's connected. It comes from one idea. You can't really actually separate anything out. What Jesus is asking us to do is to go beyond that idea and go, okay, but the idea of separation that kicked this all off is not true. So therefore, nothing that came from it is true. This physical universe and all of the things that seem to happen in it, and the material world, and minerals and plants and people, and etc., etc. It's all not true because it came from one false idea. But if you use the idea that everything's connected to help you back to oneness, that can be a useful idea. Okay, yeah, everything is connected. Everything is interconnected. Nothing is really separate in and of and by itself. As as he points out in yesterday's lesson, nothing is really separate or in and of itself, because how can it be? Everything's connected. It's connected even in the ego's thought system. There's one mind that gave birth to it. One consciousness that birthed all of this. Consciousness, or another, that's another name for the universal mind or the ego. Consciousness gave birth to all of this. So there's one mind, one thought behind all of it. But what he's asking us to do is go beyond even that thought. Say, okay, yeah, but beyond all of this lies pure formless awareness, lies perfect oneness. And that's my home. That's before the thought of separation was. And that still is there. That cannot not be. because that's foundational awareness. That's what's been called the ground of being. Without awareness, there could be no world. There could be no perception. That's fairly obvious. There must be some awareness, some mind, use whatever language you want, within which all of this can then happen, seemingly. So now we have the idea of consciousness and separation playing out in like a separate part of our minds, which is what he calls the ego. And this whole dream is happening in a part of our minds, but actually our awareness is still there. That's the ground of being. That's the foundation, without which none of this could be at all. So hence, love is in everything I see. This awareness is in everything I see. Must be. Otherwise, I would have no awareness to even perceive it. So I can actually perceive it in everything because that's my foundational awareness. So he's asking us to go beyond the perception of senses, sense perceptions, and into this deeper mind. And this is true vision. When we are connected with this, and we're seeing with the body's eyes and senses, but we're connected to this, then we have true sight, we have true vision. Because we're seeing everything for what it really is. We're seeing that love is actually its foundation. That awareness that is my awareness is also in the table, or it's also in the plant. It's also it's everywhere, because it's just awareness. So in these exercises, he's asking us to train our minds to perceive it everywhere. Make no distinctions. Don't distinguish between what's animate and inanimate, what's natural and unnatural, what's man-made and of nature, because it's all the same, ultimately. And that takes a little bit of mind training to get that. So if you do the course, you do these workbook lessons, it'll help you to start seeing it everywhere. In nature, in people, in the man-made world, in the natural world, because you stop making artificial distinctions. The artificial distinctions are part of the domain of separation that keep this illusion going. Because we go, oh, well, that's real. Yes, there is actually separation between the natural world and the man-made world. No, there isn't in truth. If it's all one, there isn't. The distinctions are in your own mind. Okay. Any other questions? Elaine? Lucy? Okay. So shall we go into meditation then?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So just making yourselves comfortable. Sitting feet shoulder width apart, back straight, cup your hands in your lap, close your eyes. And start off by taking a nice deep breath in through the nose. So breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises. The subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Clenching your sphincter muscle. It's a muscle you use to contract the flow of urine or squeeze the last drops out. Locks the energy in. Feel this warm wave of energy rising up the spine into your heart center. Put one hand on your heart. Draw the energy all the way up into the crown of your head, pausing at the top of the inhale. Smile. And just scan your mind. So what's going on in your mind? Thoughts, emotions, sensations. Just observe them casually, in a detached way. Whatever's coming into your mind, just apply today's idea to. So say God or love, use whichever term works better for you. God or love is in this person, is in this object. God or love is in this situation. And just apply the idea to whatever comes to mind. Breathe in again. And with the breath, you have a sense of creating some presence, some openness, some stillness in the mind. It's opening to another awareness, this pure formless awareness, or God, or love. So again, if anything crops up, just say pure formless awareness, or love, or God is in this, and then name whatever the object is, or the person. Now as you exhale, have a sense of releasing, just letting go, releasing into the nothingness that everything really is, blowing it all away with the breeze of your breath. Pull the lower stomach in, expel the last remaining air out. And just sitting still for a few moments, appreciating the peace and the stillness and the silence. They call you in. This is the love or the awareness that underlies everything that Jesus is pointing you to. So breathe in again through the nose. Notice the stomach rise and the chest rise. Notice the subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Clenching your sphincter muscle. Feel a warm tingling sensation rising up the spine into your heart center. You can put one hand on your heart, connecting with your heart space. Draw the energy up to the crown of your head. Pausing at the top of the inhale. Smile. Just finding this still, calm, empty, open, spacious awareness arising in your mind. Remind yourself, God is in everything I see, or love is in everything I see. Pure formless awareness is in everything I see. If any thoughts come to mind, just apply the idea to them. God or love or pure formless awareness is in this. Just name whatever it is. Person, object, place, situation. And then exhale out through your mouth. And have a sense of just letting go of any investment you have in the form, in the thought of it. Thought and emotion are forms which create a covering, a cloud over pure formless awareness. A veil of illusion has been called, seemingly justified by an external world of sense perceptions, but that's all a setup. The external world is designed to justify thoughts and emotions that cover pure formless awareness, keep you in a state of fear, desire, anger, attack, guilt, jealousy, rage, and whatever else. These are just covers over pure formless awareness. The only purpose of the world is to perpetuate them. But you can change your mind. You can choose right now with the Holy Spirit, which is the awareness of perfect oneness, the awareness of unconditional love, it's been called. The awareness of pure formless awareness in your mind. So you can listen only to that awareness. So do that now, just sink in, going into your mind, just being aware of this awareness as your own awareness. This is the mystical merging of the Father with the Son, the source with its extension. It's happening right now in your mind. You just merge your awareness into that awareness. So there's nowhere where that awareness begins and you end. There's just one awareness, one pure formless awareness, complete and whole unto itself. There's no split, there's no separation, there's no distinctions. Which is why love is in everything you see. Because this awareness underlies all of your perceptions. Without this awareness, there would be no perception. There would be no world. Think about that for a moment. And then just surrender into this awareness. It's not something that you can intellectually understand. It's something you just have to experience and accept. So let yourself go into this awareness. Nowhere else to go, nothing else to do. Nothing else to think about. Just this awareness, pure formless awareness, rising very strongly in your mind. So allow that. Don't resist it. Don't block it. If any thoughts arise, any emotions, just observe them and apply today's idea. Say, God or love or pure formless awareness is in this. And then name whatever it is. And let go. Just let go of needing to think about it. Go of emotion around it. It isn't true, it isn't real, so it can be safely dismissed. Let it blow away like a cloud, just drifting by. There's no power to obscure. Perfect light. Of pure formless awareness. The very essence of who you are, the love that you are. So sink into this. Surrender into it for a couple of minutes of deep silence. There's really nowhere else to go, and there's nothing else to do, and there's nothing else to think about. Just breathe, observe your breath, relax, be still. And sink inwards to this pure formless awareness. Love is what you really are, and experience that for the next 2 minutes or so of deep silence. If any thoughts arise, seeming to disturb this deep peace of your own true awareness, connection to your source, the love that you feel, then just observe these disturbances, distractions casually. Imagine they're like clouds, just drifting by. They have no real power to obscure the blue sky, which is your true awareness, or the light of your source that shines through. It's that awareness. And so you dismiss them. Remind yourself that God or love or pure formless awareness is in this, and then name the object, person, maybe it's a situation you're thinking about. God is in this, whatever, and let it go with your breath, blowing the cloud away, it's the breeze of your breath, to the nothingness it really is, and resting in this pure formless awareness, the blue sky of your true mind for another minute or two of deep silence. And so gently coming back from this deep state of being in your own awareness of love, and just bring your awareness back into the body and the senses in the world. On the count of 3, you're going to open your eyes. So 1, just breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises. Subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Pausing at the top of the inhale. Just check in and scan your mind again. Noticing any thoughts there, any emotions, any sensations in the body, and remind yourself as you observe them, God or love or pure formless awareness is in this person, object, situation. Just name it, exhale, have a sense of just releasing. There's no mental and emotional attachment. Just let it all go, release into the nothingness it really is. Blowing it all away with the breeze of your breath. And so even as you come back into sense perceptions, into the world, this pure formless awareness, love, God, is still with you. And because this is the base foundation of your perception, therefore God or love or pure formless awareness must be in everything you see. So on the count of 2, notice the weight of your body pressing down into the chair, your feet touching the ground. Noticing what you're feeling with your hands. Touching with your body, maybe there's a subtle flow of air on your skin. Notice that, breathe that air in to your nostrils. Notice any smell in your nose, maybe there's a subtle taste in your mouth. Notice what you're hearing, the surrounding environment, without any judgment. Notice how peaceful it is when you just observe without judgment. Because this love, this presence we call God or love or pure formless awareness comes streaming through into your awareness. Start to recognize the truth of what Jesus is saying here, that God or love or what pure formless awareness is in everything I see. And so on the count of 3, open your eyes. Just take a minute or 2 to look around. Apply the idea to whatever you see. So just look around randomly, choose an object, let your eyes rest briefly on it. Don't select anything and don't avoid anything. Just whatever your eyes happen to rest on is a suitable subject, and apply the lessons. So say God or love or pure formless awareness. Use whichever term seems to work best for you, or you can alternate the terms. Is in this wall, for instance, or God or love, pure formless awareness is in this hand. You look at your hand. God or love or pure formless awareness is in this table. God or love, pure formless awareness is in this curtain, and so on. So just do that for, say, another half a dozen objects. Very casually, so it's very slow, casual. Just spend a few seconds on each one. Repeat the phrase in your mind. God, love, pure formless awareness is in this, whatever it is, and then move on to something else. Don't select something else, just whatever your eyes happen to rest on. So it's very random, very casual, and notice how you're feeling as you're doing this. Should be feeling quite relaxed, calm, detached. There's no real investment in any of these things. Just using them as pointers to what lies beyond them, which is God, love, pure formless awareness. So just do this in a very unhurried, casual way. Do it for a couple more things. And to conclude the exercise, just say today's central idea one more time. God, or love, or pure formless awareness is in everything I see. And let that sit with you for a few moments. Notice how you're feeling, and just anchor the state in. It means you just notice it, and by noticing it, you set an intention really to stay there. Just starting to anchor this very nice, calm, peaceful feeling into your awareness. So whatever you're dealing with in the afternoon and evening ahead, you can stay connected to this presence. So Jesus recommends practicing this idea 6 times today for 2 minutes. So if you've done one this morning, you've done one now, do it another 4 times. Only needs to take a couple of minutes, and I have sent you a couple of recordings, breath break recordings, to allow you to do that. So you can just listen to those recordings to guide you through these little practice periods, to top you up, and feel free to join us this evening at 6:30 UK time, 8:30 SA time, for our evening session, when we'll do the text, and we'll also meditate again on today's lesson. So I'll guide you through another practice period. So that brings us to the end of the meditation and today's session, this afternoon session. So thank you for joining, everyone, and wish you a very happy flowing afternoon ahead, and namaste.